We want to bring in Republican Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida. Congresswoman, great to see you. Thanks for coming on today. Just want to get your initial reaction. Yet another anti-Semitic attack here in the United States.
Absolutely. That's right, Bill. And more than that, this is another example of innocent civilians, innocent citizens who have been victim to a broken immigration system and a lack of enforcement of the laws on the books. This man was in the country illegally, had overstayed a visa. It was pretty telling. It should have been a red flag when he filed for asylum exactly 1 month after receiving his temporary visa. But again, he overstayed his visa when it expired. And the thing that is very telling to me is not only have we seen a rise in anti-Semitism around the country on college campuses and elsewhere, but you see how many people are watching this attack take place. Not one person is stepping up. This is a gun-free zone, and he was able to continue his act of violence unfettered. Absolutely unacceptable. We have got to up the deportations, and we have got to do everything we can to make our communities safe again.
And it feels like this just keeps escalating, right? I mean, this is just the latest in a string of all sorts of anti-Semitic, hateful incidents that have been taking place, really targeting the Jewish population here in the U.S. You'll remember back in April, there was this alleged arson attack on Governor Josh Shapiro's house in Pennsylvania. At the time, the police said the suspect firebombed the house because of what the governor, quote, wants to do to the Palestinian people. Then in early May, there were anti-Israel protesters at Columbia. They took over a room in the Butler Library. That led to the arrest of about 80 of those protesters. They disrupted students who were trying to study. That protest, that occupation also caused some damage to the library. There was graffiti in there. Then we all remember just a couple weeks ago, 2 young Israeli embassy staffers gunned down, executed, killed right in front of the Jewish Museum in Washington. Witnesses say that shooter shouted, quote, "Free, free Palestine." That was on video. He said he did it for Gaza. And then just last week, we saw this. Jewish students at MIT storming out of their own graduation ceremony after their class president accused the university of aiding Israel's genocide.
We are watching Israel try to wipe Palestine off the face of the earth, and it is a shame that MIT is a part of it. The Israeli occupation forces are the only foreign military that MIT has research ties with. This means that Israel's assault on the Palestinian people is not only aided and abetted by our country, but our school. We will carry with us the stamp of the MIT name, the same name that is directly complicit in the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people.
And MIT later said that student went rogue. That was not in the prepared speech that she submitted. But Congresswoman, we're seeing this across all sorts of campuses in the U.S., and it just seems to keep turning into almost like a pressure cooker. All these different campuses, all these different protests, Intifada, Free Palestine, and now that is translating into physical violence.
Absolutely. And, you know, the thing that I find ironic is the people who are out there screaming Free Palestine are the ones that have the coexist bumper stickers on the back of their Toyota Priuses. This is absolutely unacceptable. Zero tolerance is the only answer. And Congress, we should be doing everything we can to withhold federal funding to any institution that continues to allow this type of hateful anti-Semitic rhetoric and violence to occur on their campuses. And I hope for that particular graduation speaker, she ripped up her diploma from MIT. I'm going to borrow a line from Secretary of State Rubio. They can hate us for free. We don't need to fund their education. We don't need to continue to allow these individuals who want to incite hate and violence in our country. They don't need to be here studying on student visas. It is a privilege to be here in the United States if you want to be a foreign student getting a degree here in the United States. This cannot stand. We need to crack down hard, and it needs to happen immediately. And just to add further insult to injury, there was a Politico article that hit today that called the president, I believe, of Columbia University, the first casualty right in the middle of actual violence taking place in Boulder, Colorado against Jews. This is unacceptable. We have to take swift action. The Trump administration, I believe, needs to step up to deportations even more.
And one other topic I do want to get your thoughts on are these concerns about President Biden and his mental acuity in office. Republicans certainly not slowing down when it comes to their pursuit of answers on the former president's mental decline and the alleged cover-up of it. GOP lawmakers say this is a very, very serious issue.
Who was signing those, who was in charge when this was happening? It's becoming very obvious from whistleblowers right now that it was not Joe Biden. So we need to know, the American people need to know who was making decisions over those last 4 years, who had access to that auto pen, and who was signing this legislation, because that's an actual crime.
I think that the Trump administration could get them thrown out in court, and then Trump would be able to execute his agenda a whole lot easier.
Now, last week, 4 former Biden aides and his former White House doctor all just essentially blew off the House Oversight Committee's deadline to agree to interviews. Committee Chair James Comer says he will issue subpoenas to compel their cooperation. So my question for you is, your colleague, Congressman Comer, he's suggesting that if it's determined that these auto pens were used and there were other people signing these orders and it wasn't President Biden himself, that those auto pen orders can essentially be thrown out. Is that something you guys are going to pursue?
Absolutely. And again, I always look back to those very aggressive in-your-face tweets that the Biden administration and members of that administration used to put out on repeat. No one is above the law, yet they decide that they're going to not show up for a congressional hearing. They don't want to answer to the American people about some real serious concerns that we have about not only Biden's cognitive decline, but who was actually making decisions on his behalf. No one seems to have those answers. And to sell the American people on the notion that not only was he of sound mind and sharp as a tack, but that he was not being tested, that his cancer diagnosis came as a shock. No one wants to undergo, no one is wishing him ill health, certainly no. But we should have been made a prize to that situation. This is absolutely cover up. There needs to be consequences. The American people deserve accountability. This cannot stand.
Yeah, and since it sounds like those aides have no interest in talking right now, we will stay tuned as those subpoenas start going out. Congresswoman Kat
Absolutely.
Tammet, great to see you. Thanks for coming on today.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.